Ketel Marte is rumored to be on the move this offseason. Why the Boston Red Sox could be the perfect fit.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's all free. So make sure you tune in because Locked On is here for you every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Happy Tuesday and welcome to the show. I apologize for dropping today's episode so late, just playing some catch up after a late night last night where I went to actually the Patriots-Giants Monday Night Football game. So that was a good time. And while we're talking about Patriots football and how good they are, the Red Sox could be good in 2026 also if they make the right moves this offseason. Could one of those moves entail trading for Ketel Marte? Going to be discussing that on today's show, as well as what's next for the Red Sox after trading for pitcher Sonny Gray and the team's path to the AL pennant, because the AL is very wide open right now. So this is a good opportunity for the Red Sox to capitalize in 2026. And Ketel Marte is rumored to potentially be on the trading block this offseason. Now, the Diamondbacks would ask for a haul in return for him. So that's something that the Red Sox would have to be prepared for if they are willing to acquire a guy like that. They need to know that they're going to have to be okay with parting ways with multiple talented players, most likely. In exchange for him, the Diamondbacks are apparently looking for lots of pitching in return. So that's one thing that could hold the Red Sox back from a trade, because they might be hesitant to give up even more of their pitching depth. They already traded pitching depth to acquire Sonny Gray. So that might be something that makes the Red Sox a little bit hesitant about it. But it's no doubt about the fact that Marte's bat in the lineup would be huge for the Red Sox, and he would solve what is right now a hole at second base, because the Red Sox really don't know fully right now how their infield is going to shape up. And if they were to trade for a guy like Marte, that could signal a move later on that potentially involves trading a guy like Marcelo if they don't really feel like there's a solid infield spot for him. Because if they bring back Alex Bregman and they also have Marte, then the infield would consist of Bregman, Story, Marte, and then whoever they have play first base, which could be Casas, it could be somebody else. Still, time will tell on that. But if the Red Sox pull off this type of trade for a guy like Marte, it makes too much sense for the Red Sox in terms of filling two needs, because they haven't really had a steady presence at second base in a long time. So that's something that could immediately help with that. But the Red Sox would have to pay the price. He's 32 years old now, so any team that's looking to trade for him is naturally going to be asking the question of, is he still going to be able to be as effective? Because he's a top 20 hitter in baseball over the last few seasons by his advanced metrics. So that's something that he could really help provide from a value standpoint to a team. But because he's 32 now, there's definitely a valid reason to feel like a decline could maybe be coming for him. So that's a risk that a team would have to take, because if he still brings the same level of production that we've seen from him over the past few seasons, then this would be a huge win of a trade. But the problem is there is that if that exists, if he's not providing that type of value and he declines and the Red Sox gave up an arm and a leg for him, then it could look like a very bad trade for the Red Sox. So there's risks, and the Red Sox might not be a team that's willing to take that risk. But to me, you do it. To me, to acquire a guy who can be a steady presence at second base, it's worth taking the gamble, especially because the Red Sox still have players that are tradable this offseason from positions that they already have an overflow of players in, and just from depth. They can still move pieces, and they 100% should be moving pieces in order to get the right pieces here in Boston to be a part of this Red Sox team. So will they trade for Marte? Maybe, but no doubt it makes a lot of sense in terms of where the Red Sox are at right now, because it would fill two needs. It would bring in a bat that's a steady veteran presence who could help with replacing some of that productivity that they're lacking by not having Devers on the team anymore. And he's somebody who could play second base every day, and the Red Sox could feel good about that. He has 5 years remaining on the 6-year, $116.5 million deal that he signed last year. He slashed a batting average of .283 with a .376 on base percentage and .517 slugging with 28 home runs in 2025. So he has had a good season, very much so, over the last few years. And looking even deeper into his advanced metrics, he's in the 85th percentile in bat speed, 73rd percentile in hard hit percentage, and 83rd percentile in barrel percentage. So he is able to hit the ball pretty hard. He doesn't strike out a lot either, and he takes a good amount of walks. He's in the 85th percentile in K percentage and the 84th percentile in walk percentage. So essentially what that means is that he's not striking out as much as the average player is, and he's taking more walks than the average player. So naturally, because he's a pretty patient hitter, that's something that could provide a lot of value for the middle of the Red Sox order. Now, that all being said, what it would probably cost the Red Sox to get a guy like Marte, they would definitely have to be prepared to part ways with at least one of that Connolly, Early, Peyton Tolley group of pitchers that the Red Sox are really feeling out to see if they're going to be part of the rotation long term. They would have to be prepared to move on from at least one of those pitchers. I'm sure Marcelo Meyer's name would come up in conversation. I'm sure Christian Campbell's name would come up in conversation. I'm sure even Roman Anthony's name would come up in conversation, more because the Diamondbacks would be stupid not to ask for him. But the Red Sox would definitely say no to that, because they have made it so clear that Roman Anthony is the face of the franchise. He's the guy that they are primarily building around now, and he's the guy that the Red Sox have faith in is going to pave the way for the future of where this Boston Red Sox team is going. But to me, he and Garrett Crochet are the only non-movable pieces. If your name is not one of those two players, you should be brought up in conversation to bring an all-star talent here. And I'm moving on from Marcelo Meyer in a heartbeat if it means getting Ketel Marte. And the reason I say Meyer primarily is just because of the fact that he was part of that big three that the Red Sox were talking about in those prospects that they had coming up with Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell. And it really felt like Marcelo Meyer was a guy that they wouldn't even entertain the idea of trading. But because of his injury history in the last couple seasons, and the fact that the Red Sox are in a situation where there may not necessarily be a spot for him in the infield, depending on how the infield shapes out, it could be logical to try to move on from him, because Ketel Marte is no doubt somebody who would make the Red Sox better in 2026. And it's very much a situation that could work in the Red Sox favor, because he has an option for 2027, but they wouldn't have to commit to him long term if they don't have the desire to do that, which makes sense with the fact that he is 32. So if there is a decline and they only have him for a year, then yes, that's unfortunate, because they would have given up a lot to essentially get a player on a 1-year deal, especially if he isn't as effective as the Red Sox are hoping that he would be. But those are what World Series contending teams do. They make those types of aggressive moves, and they think more about the now than they do the long term. And prospects are prospects until they prove themselves in the majors, and no prospect is really worth keeping to the level of turning down the possibility of building a World Series team now. I do understand on a rebuilding team, you do need to hang on to as many of those top tier prospects as you can. But for a team like the Boston Red Sox, who went to the playoffs in 2025 and is hoping to grow from that in 2026, the types of moves that they should be making are win now moves. And bringing in Ketel Marte would be a win now move for the Boston Red Sox. And he solves a couple of different things for the Red Sox by being able to play second base and by also being able to hit at a high level for the Boston Red Sox, assuming that he provides the same level of productivity. Will the Red Sox do it is the biggest question, and they may be hesitant because of what they'd have to give up, but there's no denying that he would make the Red Sox a better team. So will Marte end up with the Boston Red Sox? Time will tell. But coming up, what's next for the Red Sox after trading for Sonny Gray? If you like sports betting or you're looking to get into it, FanDuel is no doubt the place for you. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast and so can you. FanDuel is a great way to win lots of money by betting on a lot of different sports. So I'm not making any promises, but hey, maybe you could be rich if you sign up for FanDuel today. It could change your life. The Red Sox need to make game-changing moves this offseason in order to put them in true World Series contention. They traded for Sonny Gray. That was a good trade. They got a guy who can help them win right now. He's a guy who's coming off of a very solid season in St. Louis, a guy who's excited to pitch for the Boston Red Sox, actually expressed that he's excited to play for a team that hates the Yankees because he supposedly didn't enjoy playing there when he was with the Yankees. So he is looking forward to pitching for the Boston Red Sox. So he's definitely happy to be here. That was a win now move. The Red Sox traded from depth to get a guy like that, and they need to continue to make statement moves if they want to be a true World Series contending team. And the question now becomes what's next for the Red Sox after trading for him, because they are at the point now where they have options. And Craig Breslow did mention that now that they have traded for Sonny Gray, they are shifting their attention to primarily focus on one or two big bats that they want to add to the lineup, whether that's bringing back Alex Bregman and acquiring another bat like Ketel Marte, who I had talked about, or bringing in Pete Alonso or Kyle Schwarber. Those seem to be what the Red Sox goals are moving forward, that they are prioritizing bringing in a big bat or two to add to this lineup. So that's a factor in all of this to consider, is the fact that the Red Sox are no longer necessarily prioritizing pitching, but that doesn't mean that they're not opposed to trading for a pitcher, because Craig Breslow also did say that they're shifting their attention away from pitching in free agency. He didn't say we're done with pitching altogether. He kind of left the door open in a little bit of an ambiguous way of we're still open to trading for a pitcher, but it didn't sound like the Red Sox are really going to be prioritizing trying to sign a free agent starting pitcher to add to this rotation. I do hope that the Red Sox trade for another starting pitcher, because while Sonny Gray certainly will be a boost to the Red Sox rotation, he's not necessarily that game-changing piece that the Red Sox necessarily need to be a World Series contending team, him alone. If you couple him with another really strong pitcher, like trading for Joe Ryan, for example, then we're really talking about a strong Red Sox rotation that consists of Garrett Crochet, Joe Ryan, if he's the guy, Brian Bayo, and Sonny Gray as the 1 through 4. Then we're really talking about a rotation that could make a statement in the playoffs and fight for a World Series title. Having Sonny Gray here is great. There are a lot of upsides to having a veteran starter who has been in different environments. He's been in small markets, he's been in big markets, and he's been able to show that he can pitch effectively, even still at his age. So there's no doubt about the fact that he makes the Red Sox better, but they shouldn't be done. And I don't think they are, because they also still have pieces that they can trade. Like I've talked about a lot on the show, one of their outfielders is going to likely be traded this offseason, simply primarily because of the fact that they just have an overflow of outfielders and there isn't necessarily a spot for all of these guys. So they can take advantage of that by saying, hey, we're going to trade one of our outfielders so that we can bring in another big name pitcher to add into our starting rotation. And if that big name pitcher ends up being Joe Ryan, yes, they'll probably have to give up more pieces. It's not just going to be a 1-for-1 trade of here's a Red Sox outfielder, we'll take Joe Ryan. There's going to be more pieces that the Red Sox are going to have to give up in order to make it possible to get a guy like Joe Ryan. And I keep bringing him up because he seems like maybe the most likely option for the Red Sox when it comes to acquiring that number 2 starting pitcher, because they were interested in Ryan at the trade deadline. They talked to the Twins. They weren't able to work out a deal. Craig Breslow didn't really want to move any of the guys who were currently on the team at the time, which was a big reason why the trade got held up at the time when it did. But now that it's the offseason, Breslow would be more willing and open to moving guys who were on the 2025 team. So that could be what pushes that trade through the finish line, is the Red Sox being willing to give up some of these players. And it could be really intriguing to the Twins. So if the Red Sox pull the trigger on that and they are able to acquire Joe Ryan, then you're really looking at a starting rotation that can contend for a World Series title. Now, again, the Sonny Gray move alone was a good one. And the Red Sox rotation is better now than it was 2 weeks ago. No doubt about that. But the biggest thing for me is that yes, they are better now than they were, but they still have the chance to be even better, because it's hard to bank on Sonny Gray 100% being a true number 2 starter at this point in his career. He will definitely contribute and be a positive asset, but it would be a lot more confidence when it comes to the rotation on paper, and it would look like it's a rotation that's more complete if they were to bring in another starting pitcher. So that should be another move that the Red Sox do make this offseason, even though they do have Sonny Gray. And based on Craig Breslow's comments and him saying they weren't ruling out getting another pitcher, I don't think that he's necessarily done and he's going to be closed-minded to the idea of another pitcher, because he basically explained that he learned his lesson at the trade deadline, that you can't really wait around for too long for another deal to pan out, because then what if it doesn't and then you miss out and end up settling, kind of like he did with Dustin May. So in the offseason, Craig Breslow wanted to approach it with, okay, if there's a move that makes sense for us, we need to make it happen. And also, the bigger name guys who may get traded, like a Joe Ryan type, those guys are probably going to be moved later in the offseason, because teams are really going to be asking for a lot for those types of guys. And it takes a while for those guys to be moved, because the organization is fielding all kinds of calls, listening to all kinds of trade proposals. So they wouldn't just naturally settle with saying, yep, the first opportunity that we get, let's just trade him. They're really going to want to hear out what these offers entail, so that way then they know that the trade really works in their favor. So with this Sonny Gray trade, the timing of it has some people worried that Craig Breslow is going to call it a day with the Red Sox rotation, and this was his solution at number 2. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. I don't think they're prioritizing as much as they are the bats now, as they should, because now they did acquire a pitcher. I do think they're still going to be thinking about acquiring another starter, but the next step needs to be shifting the priority to big bats. And it would be disappointing if they only bring back Alex Bregman. If that ends up being the only bat that they acquire this offseason, and I say acquire because he's a free agent, but he was with the Red Sox last year, that still wouldn't feel like it would put the Red Sox over the top, because that's essentially still not replacing that Devers productivity in the lineup. And that's the issue that I would have, would be, yes, you bring back Alex Bregman, great. He's a good bat to have in your lineup. But because of how much he struggled in the last couple months of the season last year, it's hard to feel 100% confident in Bregman's ability to be able to be this huge bat that the Red Sox need. So they really need 2 big bats. If one of them is Alex Bregman, then for sure that's something that the Red Sox could look to add back into the lineup, but there needs to be somebody else as well. And by somebody else, I mean a Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso type of bat, or trading for a guy like Ketel Marte, guys who we know have a history of performing well. And more importantly, also a guy like Kyle Schwarber, who has familiarity with Boston because he played for the Red Sox in 2021 when they made it to the ALCS. And we're not supposed to make it that far. And a guy who has a history of performing well in the postseason. That is all so important. And that to me is something that the Red Sox can look for when they're trying to acquire these bats, is guys who have postseason success in their history, because they want guys who are going to be able to step up. So at the end of the day, while I know that the Red Sox are not going to be prioritizing pitching at this point in the game, I do know they need to be making a push for some big bats. And if they go and they acquire 2 big bats to add to the lineup, then they're looking at a team that has a serious shot, as long as they're healthy, going into 2026. And then if you add another pitcher, then that would really seal the deal for me as a very complete and successful offseason for the Red Sox. But they still need to make 3 big moves moving forward here before spring training in order for me to really get behind this Red Sox team truly being in the World Series conversation. So what's next after Sonny Gray? Acquire 1 to 2 big bats. And coming up, what could the Red Sox path to the pennant look like? Thank you so much for tuning into Locked On Red Sox and always making it your first listen of every single day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We truly here at Locked On would not be able to do it without you. I am so incredibly grateful for your constant support of my show, truly. For your second listen after you finish this show, you can also find the Locked On MLB podcast, where there is no offseason. Sully keeps you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed MLB fan. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It truly is a great show. So check that out on any podcast platform as your second listen after Locked On Red Sox. What is going to happen with the rest of the Red Sox offseason? That is a prime question that is being asked, and rightfully so. The Red Sox made their first big trade, trading for Sonny Gray to add to their rotation. He is a guy who will certainly be a rotation boost for Boston, no doubt about that, but they cannot be done, especially if they want to compete in a division that's tough as it is. The Blue Jays are coming off of an AL pennant title, and they went to the World Series and took the defending champs from 2024 to a Game 7. Played their hearts out. Obviously, it ended in heartbreak for Toronto, but they just added Dylan Cease to their rotation. And yes, it was a massive payday that Cease got, and probably an overpay on the Blue Jays end. But that's a starting pitcher who no doubt is going to help a rotation that just got the Blue Jays to the World Series. Dylan Cease is a pitcher who was one of the best pitchers available on the market this offseason. And this is a team who just went to the World Series and said, yeah, we're going to keep adding to that. So in order for the Red Sox to be able to compete with a team like Toronto, they need to counter that Dylan Cease move with their own Dylan Cease equivalent, whether that's through free agency or via a trade. Looking like if it's going to happen, it would likely be more possible that it's by trade based on what Craig Breslow has said. But this is a really important time for the Red Sox to capitalize. The American League is wide open right now, and this is the Red Sox chance to really stand out. And a lot of people going into the 2025 season had penciled in the Red Sox as the potential AL champion. Obviously, that didn't happen. They were young. They had lots of injuries, and young guys getting called up and getting their first experience playing in the majors and having to adapt to playing at that high of a level. So the Red Sox were just going through a lot in 2025. It was a big growth year, but it's a team that went to the postseason. So in order to be a team that can make a deeper run and compete with a team like Toronto, who's coming off of that World Series appearance, they need to counter that Dylan Cease move, and they need to go out and acquire a true number 2 starter who undeniably is going to be a number 2 starter, not a guy who they feel like could be a number 2 starter or may turn into one at some point. They need somebody who no doubt is a true number 2 right now that they can pair with Garrett Crochet to feel like they have the best 1-2 punch in baseball. That is going to help put them past Toronto. And you have the Yankees, who also were a playoff team and eliminated the Red Sox in 2025. That's a team too that the Red Sox are going to be competing with. The Yankees just always have good players there. Aaron Judge coming off another MVP season. And then who knows what's going to happen with a guy like Cody Bellinger. There's a possibility that he doesn't stay in New York, but their pitching is likely going to be healthy. Garrett Cole probably coming back. I think he might miss the beginning of the season, if I'm not mistaken, but he'll probably be back. They have Max Fried, who had a really good season for them in 2025, who will continue to pitch for them in 2026. They also have Carlos Rodon, who had a good year as well in 2025. So those are 3 reliable starters. Now, the Red Sox starting rotation right now does have a bit of a drop-off because Brian Bayo is the Red Sox number 3 starter. But the problem is, because Brian Bayo struggled at the end of the season in 2025, it's hard to really know to what level he's going to pitch at in 2026, which is why the Red Sox could use another rotation move if they want to compete with those teams. Yes, Baltimore fell off and had a tough season in 2025, but if they add the right pieces, they could get back to being competitive in 2026 too. And then there's the Rays, who just always somehow manage for the most part to be competitive. So this is a tough division. Outside of the Red Sox division, there are not a lot of top tier teams in the American League. So the Red Sox really can dictate their own destiny here, if you will, by making the right moves. Because when you look at where their division is at right now, it felt like the Red Sox were pretty close to where the Blue Jays and Yankees were. They were like one step below them on that ladder. And part of that had to do with injuries that the Red Sox faced in 2025. Part of that was trading away Rafael Devers and then not replacing him during the season. So now is the time to 100% replace Devers' bat. They need to go get somebody to put into this lineup who is going to be able to provide value offensively to that same level of productivity that they had gotten from Devers when he was here. So that's a must do this offseason, because if not, that offense is going to have a hard time competing with the rotations of teams like the Blue Jays and Yankees. But if the Red Sox make 2 to 3 more moves this offseason, and not just any moves, impactful moves that are the right ones, because we don't want to sit here and have Breslow be doing this and making moves just to say he made moves. They need to be productive moves that are going to move the needle. And Sonny Gray certainly moves the needle a little bit, but is not the let's put us over the top type of move. And the let's put us over the top type of moves are things that Craig Breslow has shown before that he's not afraid to do. When he traded for Garrett Crochet, that said a lot about his attitude when it comes to making trades. He's not afraid to trade prospects. He's not afraid to trade players if it means getting somebody who's going to help the Boston Red Sox win. And he needs to channel that mindset going into the rest of this offseason when it comes to the moves that they make. Because if the Red Sox make 3 moves, preferably 2 for big bats and another 1 for pitching, they are golden. That is going to be a baseball team that could compete for a World Series title, especially with the fact that the American League isn't as good as the National League. There is a path there for the Red Sox to be the American League team that's representing in the World Series. They just have to go about it the right way. And one of the biggest ways that they can do that is get 1 or 2 bats that can compete with the best rotations that the American League has to offer. The Yankees starting pitching was really good. The Blue Jays starting pitching also was good. to be able to compete with those types of rotations, you need to get the big bats in the lineup. So if the Red Sox go about this the right way, there is a path to the pennant for Boston in 2026. The young guys are going to continue to gain experience, hopefully continue to elevate their game, especially the guys who were rookies in 2025 that made their debuts throughout the course of the season, that are now heading into a sophomore campaign in 2026, in which they hopefully are ready to continue to grow and develop even more. They now got that taste of the postseason. So the Red Sox have a lot of the right pieces in place. They just need to wrap up this offseason with big moves that are going to help them 100% compete. Because with the Red Sox roster right now as it is, I don't think this roster as it stands right now is better than the Blue Jays or better than the Yankees, but it can be with the right moves made. So we'll have to see how Craig Breslow goes about it, but maybe Ketel Marte will be in a Boston Red Sox uniform in a couple months. Who knows? But thank you for always making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.